everyone, Stephen Kirkpatrick with Executive Speakers Bureau. I am so excited to have this installment of Executive Speakers on Speakers Zoomcast. I've got a lot of firsts today. Hold on to your hats. It's going to get kind of crazy. So we're going to bring you the same awesome content with the same awesome speakers, but this time it's supersized. For the first time ever, I am going to have a co-host. And then we've got two guests. It's going to be crazy. I know. I'm blowing your minds, but hey, it's pandemic. We got to do crazy things to keep things going. So without further ado, let me introduce my amazing co-host. She is a member of the sales team here at Executive Speakers Bureau. She's an award-winning bureau owner, a Vegas headliner, and most importantly, my backup singer for karaoke. Ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful and talented Jennifer Lier. Hey, Jennifer.
Hey, Stephen. What a fun opportunity. Thanks for asking me to do this.
Well, you know, I had to find someone that was prettier than me.
That's hard to do.
Come on now, Jennifer, stop.
And I don't think you accomplished that yet. So
whatever.
Keep looking.
Jennifer, how are you? How are things in Las Vegas?
I'm amazing. Things are good in Las Vegas, man. We're survivors here. We really, really are. And they are just pushing to do well and open things up. And we have another casino opening up next week. And
oh, cool.
You know, they're doing such great things. I mean, just making sure that everybody's safe and making sure their protocols are in place. And it's just been wonderful. And to watch the city really kind of come together and do this. It's been, again, magnificent. Las Vegas is pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking some time to come and be my co-host and making me look good.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I appreciate it. So you ready to bring our guest on?
I am. I'm very excited about this. So when you asked me, I didn't know who we were going to have on, but when I found out the speakers you were going to have to join us today, super excited. Love these ladies. Oh,
they're amazing. They were part of our virtual summit that we did a few months ago, but they're doing some really amazing work right now. They're doing some really amazing work and research around corporate culture and around remote corporate cultures and around future of work. So official introduction. So we are so excited to have Hannah Ubl and Lisa Walden, who are the co-founders of Good Company Consulting. Good Company Consulting is focused all about creating workplaces that don't suck, to eliminate the Sunday scaries, but also making workplaces more human. They're amazing people. They're some of my best friends in the world. They will probably deny that, but they are. Hannah and Lisa, thank y'all so much for coming.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes.
Lisa, que bonita esta dia.
Oh, this day is quite beautiful. I agree.
Yeah. ¿Ganas mucha plata esta semana?
Sí, señor. Me gusta salsa. I just thought I'd communicate in the same language as you.
Yeah, no, that's
gibberish.
Good. Lisa's my Spanish teacher sometimes.
I was going to say, you've been working on that, Stephen?
Oh yeah, Google Translate helps out a lot.
Yeah, apparently we need to work a little bit harder, but we'll talk about that offline.
We'll get there.
Work on his accent, Lisa.
Yo, that's going to be hard. That's going to be hard to get rid of. I will tell you that. So Hannah and Lisa, let's get a little to the background. What made you want to start Good Company Consulting?
Great question. Do you want to? I'll start. Great. Okay. So why we wanted to start Good Company Consulting, because too many people hate going to work, I think, is the biggest thing. And, you know, we've been studying and researching people for a really long time. And so often we would go in and hear about what they didn't like about work and why they were tired and why they were getting burnt out. And we were fortunate enough to have jobs that we really, really loved. And we were like, man, this sucks. Like, everyone should be able to really love their job, and let's try to help more people work in awesome workplaces and workplaces that don't suck, really. So Lisa,
to tack on to that. So Hannah and I used to work together in a previous organization where we looked at generations. So we studied boomers, Xers, millennials, Gen Z in the workplace. And that was looking at generational differences.
You also co-wrote a book together, correct?
We did. Yeah, we did. We wrote Managing Millennials for Dummies together. And so we went from that environment of looking at how people were different and how to bridge those differences in order to work better together. And through that experience and through all the hundreds of interviews we did and all the presentations we delivered, we realized this connecting thread of people were so unhappy in their jobs, and they were so unhappy in, you know, a place where they're spending at least a third of their lives, if not more, because people are working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. And why was that the case? How could we help? And how could we center the fact that we're all more similar than we are different in order to, you know, connect ties across like human beings at work and lead with a more humane workplace? And I will say, one of our leaders that Hannah and I had in our previous organization was so incredible. And I remember the first day that I went to interview with her, and she said, I see my job as a leader as this in this organization. If you have a pit in your stomach on a Sunday night because you are dreading coming into work on Monday morning, then I am not doing my job. Because one of my biggest goals is to make sure that you wake up on Monday morning excited to come in.
Wow.
And that was like such an incredible thing that I'd never heard from a leader before. And for both of us, Hannah and I, we want to be able to spread that message and have more leaders take up that mantle because it's so incredible.
Yeah.
Wow, there's so much to say to that. I mean, especially right now, I mean, with everything that is going on and even more so, right? So what are some of the trends that you've been seeing with the future of work, both before COVID and now? Like, what are you seeing as we move forward?
Yeah, so I think that before COVID even hit, we were kind of going in this trajectory anyway, but I think that COVID has really shed a spotlight on why we need to. So that more humane, more human workplace where we really look at people as individuals, not as Hannah and I like to say, productivity machines, because people are not robots. They are people. They are complex. They have emotional lives. You don't just walk into the door, you know, the office and leave everything that is human about you behind you, bring it into the workplace. So I think that traditionally, you know, we were expected to separate professional from personal. That's how you showed that you were a consummate professional, as you left all that emotional stuff at home. But now we're kind of understanding how important it is to weave that into how we manage employees, how we talk to one another, how we extend grace to each other at work. And like I said, I think the direction was we were going that way pre-COVID. Mm-hmm. During COVID and post-COVID, we've seen it's like a crisis accentuates all the weaknesses, right? We see every part where an organizational structure is weak or just a structure in general is highlighted whenever there's a crisis. And that's what's happened. So people are grieving during this crisis. They are grieving the loss sometimes of jobs, of, you know, family members, of the world as they knew it. And if leaders are not stepping up to acknowledge that, to acknowledge the human part of their employees, then, you know, we're seeing burnout rise. We're seeing people leave organizations, even in the midst of a pandemic with a struggling economy. They're saying, I can't. I'm looking around and I'm trying to reassess my life and the value that I bring to my job and my job brings to me, and it's not enough. So we're seeing those trends continue, but continue maybe at an accelerated pace.
That's pretty amazing. Hannah, I want to ask you a quick question. I'm going to kind of take a deeper dive into this. So let's say you're a leader and you want to be more emotionally aware / emotionally available to the people that report to you, your employees, however you want to say it. What are some things they can do? I mean, like, what are some baby steps they can do? Like, they become aware of this issue of, oh my gosh, like I need this is what my employees need. How can I become more there?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because I think even like to that idea of what we're looking at going forward is, gosh, how do you talk about emotions at work? Because for so long it was like, oh, feelings are the F word. Like, no, I do not want to talk about feelings at work. This is horrible. And of course, I mean, there were trends of burnout and depression and anxiety and loneliness that were already spiking pre-COVID. And now with the pandemic, I mean, that just shot all of those feelings and those struggles and those challenges even higher. And so leaders are in this position of like, I don't know what to do. I don't even know how to take care of my own feelings. I don't even know what I'm feeling. So I think it's really important first for leaders to understand what's going on within themselves. Like, you have to be able to take care of yourself first in order to take care of other people. And so some of that might mean it's like, yes, you are a leader. Yes, you are handling a lot of the emotional labor of the people around you, but like, what are you actually feeling? And so something that's super important is name it to tame it. Write down the different things that you're going through, process it, talk to people you need to talk to if you need to learn how to process those feelings so that you really can show up for the people that you're leading. And then once you've really done that work for yourself, which you might need to be doing in tandem with taking care of your people, I think it's really important that a leader is vulnerable about it. So one example of this that was never really talked about at work before was going to therapy. And the amount of people talking about therapy right now, it has just increased so much. And so if you're a leader and you've been struggling with your emotions, like tell your team and say, hey, you know what? This is a really hard time. And it's been hard for me too. And I've taken certain steps to take care of myself. And I expect all of you to do that too. And if you want to talk to someone about it, I'm here for you. So really being vulnerable and saying like, I've dealt with this too. I've taken some steps. They were really hard. And then also really saying, I am in support of you. And the other thing I'll add to that too, is like, you really have to show that. You have to, when you talk to your team, when you go around and you say, hey, how you doing? Someone might say, fine. You're like, cool. Are you actually fine though? Like, we can talk about this. Do you want to go deeper on this? Right. And so it's little things like that. And then also continuing to reiterate to your team, like, we know that you're going to have hard days. We know that this is tough. So like, if you're going through something and it's preventing your ability to do your work, don't be scared and then just do your work and feel like you have to hide something. Come talk to me first. Because kind of like what Lisa was saying, people are looking at changing jobs. They're looking at going different places. And one of those reasons could be that they feel like they can't have open and honest, vulnerable conversations of where they're at with their bosses and their leaders. So that was a long list of things. And Lisa,
but I mean, it was really good. I mean,
really good.
It's very well thought out, but I think too, there was a roadmap there for kind of lead yourself first and then look to others.
Yeah.
I have a question on that. If I can go a little bit deeper with that, it's interesting because it's an exercise in transparency and vulnerability for leaders, which they never had. That used to be, I'm the leader, I have to know everything, I have to have all the answers, and I'm going to lead my team where we need to go. And so now it's a whole different ball game. But it's interesting too, because I feel like it's also almost a therapy in itself for leaders to then ask themselves, what am I feeling? What am I doing? Where am I going? Then how do I, like you said, how do I name it? Then, name it to tame it. I've never heard that before. And I think that's brilliant. But then being able to communicate that. Now, how has that been since this time? And you're working with companies. Are they open to that? Are they resistant to it? Have they found it difficult? And then what tools do you give them to, overcome any type of resistance or difficulty with this? Because before it's like production. Let me get my team to produce. Now what, I have to slow down. What do I have to do? How do I do this? And what are you coming up against? And what are you seeing?
Great question, co-host. That was awesome.
Happy to contribute.
That was awesome.
I'll start with the answer to this, and then Lisa, please chime in. So I think that what we're seeing right now is there are some leaders who are doing this really, really well. So a perfect example is the CEO of Marriott, Andy Sorensen, I believe. And he addressed his entire team in like a 6.5-minute video, being incredibly vulnerable. And he is battling cancer, I believe. And like his staff was like, you should not be on camera. You're not looking like the version of yourself to tell people that we're moving forward in this tough time. And he's like, no, this is where I'm at. This is who I am. My team needs to see me. They need to hear this message from me on camera. And so I think that's a really good example of a leader who is stepping into vulnerability, doing the courageous thing, to borrow all the words of Brene Brown, and really like show up. So I think that when we see the leaders who are doing that, you see people feeling more connected, feeling more like they're part of a community. And when there's that voice and that message from leaders, there is a kind of rallying effect. And Gallup has actually done some research on that too, where they found like when a leader is vulnerable and when they still say, we're in this, here's our path that we see going forward, then people feel more like connected. So yeah, Lisa, please add to that though, because I know I'm missing things.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. And as we're tracking some of the research that's emerging right now, and they're asking employees, what do you want from leadership? Compassion and empathy are tracking at the top. And that includes, on the list is included clear communication, someone with a clear goal and purpose. But compassion and empathy are at the top of the charts because we're going through such a difficult time right now. People don't want a top-down, very hierarchical, I'm leading the charge, follow me. They want to see a leader who is human, who is experiencing the same things they are, who is open and willing to acknowledge that they are struggling too. That's what people really, really need right now. So I think to your earlier point, yeah, it's hard, right? This is a big shift for a lot of people to go from that, put your armor on at work. I'm the leader and I am strong and you will follow me because I'm strong and I know what I'm doing. That's more of an old school mentality. And that maybe made sense, 50, 60 years ago. Now though, and especially in this moment, that's not working. And I think the leaders who are recognizing that and who are making that mindset shift and that adjustment in the way that they lead are the ones that are most successful leading their employees through this difficult time. And additionally, I would add, as important as it is to be mindful of people's emotions right now, it is so important to also be mindful of how much time they are putting into the work that they are doing. Because as people have said, hundreds of times, I've seen it all over the internet, we are not working from home. We are working from home during a pandemic. And there is a big difference. It is a unique moment in history for sure. I was talking to someone who I was asking her, we're doing some interviews, preliminary interviews for a book that we are planning to write here soon about this pandemic and how it's changing the workplace. And I asked her, what differences are you seeing now, what's happening and what's going on in workplace cultures right now versus the 2009 recession? Because it's, there's some similarities there.
Yes.
And I feel that employers, in 2009, it really felt like employers had the pick of, this workplace, and it was really an employer's market. It doesn't feel like that quite so much right now. So I asked her, why is that? What's different? And she said, you know what, 2009 was all about the numbers. It was the economy. We were focused on the numbers. So people, they did more with less. And we created this expectation for people to work harder and do 2 or 3 people's jobs, right? And they did that because they wanted to keep their jobs. It was all about the numbers. Now, though, we're looking at civil unrest. We're looking at a dipping economy. We are looking at a pandemic where people's family members are getting sick and or passing away. And it's different because it's not just about the numbers. It's about what is the meaning of life, literally. I know that sounds so lofty, but what am I doing on this planet? What am I doing at work? Why am I doing it at work? People are not afraid to ask themselves these questions. And despite the fact that so many people have been laid off and furloughed, people are questioning their roles, how much they're working, what it means, how it connects to the bigger picture, how they're contributing to the greater good. So it's so different right now. And leaders who really want to retain the good people at their organization, the people at their organization need to be mindful about how are they delivering that message of purpose within their organization? What are they doing to shift moving forward? And also, importantly, how are they modeling the boundaries for their employees so their employees don't feel like they have to work as hard as the leader or be on all the time? If the leader's not modeling it, I think there's this notion of, but I'm the leader and I work hard for my people and I want to show them that I'm here for them always, whenever. The problem with that is that you show your people that you should be on, available, always, whenever. It doesn't matter what comes out of your mouth. What matters is the behavior that you're modeling. And leaders need to model that behavior, especially now when the boundary between work and home has never been as fuzzy as it is. So, yeah.
And do you teach about that too? Do you help people with that fuzzy boundary?
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a huge thing that we focus on is looking at how to really erect those barriers because they make your work better. That's what people don't think about or realize quite as often as I wish they would, is taking those breaks, taking those moments are critical to producing good work. In fact, I was just on LinkedIn and saw an article that was talking about how people who actually take their vacation time, because a lot of people do not, especially in this country, people who take their vacation time are 30% more likely to get promotions. So it's actually
that's interesting.
critical. Yeah, isn't that fascinating? I thought that was so interesting.
That's a very interesting factoid. That's interesting. And so it kind of brings up the second thing, our big topic I really want to talk about. So you, Hannah, I know specifically talked to a lot of corporations about maintaining / building a culture remotely. And it's got to be so different because, again, whenever you're in the same office, you're seeing each other on a daily basis, you've got reminders, you've got things to say, hey, this is what we're all about. This is what we're trying to do. But now a lot of it, we're separate. We're in different places. We're remote, And the other thing too, I think that you add the layer of uncertainty on top of it of, we don't know when we're going to be back together.
Yeah.
Maybe soon, maybe long time. We don't know. huge topic. Would love for you just to kind of riff on a few thoughts and we can kind of take a deeper dive, but corporate culture remotely.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Whew. Yes, this is such a challenging thing.
I know it's a big one.
I know. No, this is a really good and important question though.
Well, it's incredibly important.
Yeah, right. Because this is what so many people are experiencing.
Yeah.
And so many people are in this, they're in different states, but it's kind of this vibration of, what do we do? Because what you said, Stephen, is like, this is uncertain. We don't know how long we'll be in a remote work environment. We don't know, are we always going to be here? Are we going to shift entirely like Slack and Twitter and REI? I mean, they're making big sweeping changes. And I think that part of that too, as a leader and thinking about it as well, is that there's tons of people who have that sort of anticipatory anxiety of the changes will never stop. And speaking of human beings, like change is not something most of us are like, we
right.
change constantly with all these uncertainties and unknowns.
Appreciate our comfort.
Love it. Like, I love this roller coaster. Most people don't like it. We're like, it's the wild ride that you can't wait until it's done, but the ride just keeps on going is what it feels like right now. And so I think what's really important with going to a remote work culture is that the communication around it needs to be crystal clear. And so the communication means, okay, if we're going to a remote work culture, continuing this, maintaining this, we have to acknowledge that it's going to continue changing. Many times it's like, nope, we figured it out. Here are the rules. Here are the guidelines. The book is closed, moving on, let's get work done. That's not realistic. Like, it's going to continue changing. The purpose of how you're getting your work done in a remote work environment will keep changing. And I think one of the things that we've seen and that we're tracking is, what does it look like when you ask your people to help dictate, help define what that remote work culture looks like? And so, because what we're missing so much in this remote work environment is, there's this panic and everyone was on board, and then, oh my gosh, more people are engaged at work. Maybe they're panicked about their jobs, right? Like, they're in this transition time. And now we're reaching this place of, okay, I can really analyze what's happening in this environment. And one of those things is, it feels transactional, right? It's part of that. We're focused on productivity. And so when we get onto a Zoom call, rather than going into a meeting and we have these fun conversations and we're kind of chatting about our day, it's usually like right to business.
Right.
And then when it's done, everyone's trying to hit their leave button. So it's not just them and the facilitator last, right?
Yeah.
Awkward moment. And so we're missing those different connection points. And in building a remote work culture, it's so critical to think about, how am I still bringing those connection points in? Because that is what keeps people engaged. And that's where asking your people what they want from that environment and including them in the process is just one step to maintaining a healthy culture. It's like, bring people on board. You don't know what people want. I mean, IBM did, and maybe you've seen this, but IBM new leadership, they came on board and they said, we just need to ask our team. We don't know everything. We're not the ones doing the work all the time. We're the ones delivering the vision, right? Like, those are two completely different jobs. And so they had a huge initiative where they asked people at IBM what they wanted to do. And through all that research, they came up with a pledge with the understanding that it would keep shifting. So that's my long rambling thoughts about that.
No,
So to summarize, everyone needs to start Zoom calls with ridiculous ice-breaking games.
Oh my gosh. 100%. You got it. We're done here. Goodbye.
That's it. Icebreaker's done. Bam. All right. Y'all have a good weekend.
Done.
I'm kidding. Lisa, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, so I was just going to say that IBM pledge is really cool and worth looking up if anyone wants to. It is really, really a cool thing that they did. I'll also say that this has been the year of like paradoxical truths. Two seemingly opposing truths can exist at the same time. And I think we've seen that this year. Certainly I have more than ever before. And while building company culture is more challenging perhaps than it's ever been, I think that there is such a focus on making it happen in a way that we haven't seen for a long time. People will draft up their values, say some spiel of their company culture on their website, and then it's like, checked that box. But as Hannah said, company culture is not like a document that you print, you put on your wall, and then that's it. It is an evolving, changing thing. It's like a hedge. You need to keep like figuring out and trimming it. It's going to grow in different directions based on the people in your organization. And people now are realizing it is because we've lost all these moments, these touch points, these relational moments, we need to really focus on looking at our team, looking at our culture, looking at our values. How are we embodying our mission and our purpose? And when I was speaking to a client in preparation for a presentation, he said something that was so like genius to me. He said, my job as a leader is to make sure that I'm creating alignment amongst my team, that we're moving together, we're moving forward towards the same goal. And when we all worked in the same building, I think that I thought that I'd accomplished that. Maybe sooner than I should have thought that. There was this myth that because all of these bodies were in the same physical location, we were all doing that. We were all moving towards that same goal. Now that we're disparate, now that we're spread across, wherever people are dialing in from, that myth no longer exists. That excuse for me believing that no longer exists. And I'm really having to put in the work to make sure that I'm creating that alignment. So for me, while yes, the challenge is there, it's also shown people how important it is and how much they need to actively work on it every single day, not just, check that box, which is really, really interesting.
What are you finding? What are you, sorry, Stephen.
No, go ahead.
What are some great ideas? I love the IBM initiative. What are some of the other great ideas that you've worked with companies or leaders and you've seen them do things and you're like, what a great idea. Like how'd you think of that, to connect with your people and build that company culture? And what are some things that you've seen out of the box or some great ideas that you can leave, some tools with everybody listening or watching?
Yeah, so I'll just shoot one out. And this is an organization that at the end, Hannah, you'll probably be able to expand on this, but they, after every group meeting that they have, they'll connect what they spoke about to their mantra as a company. And so every time that they meet, they're connecting their people, their actions, their strategy back to their core mission and core purpose and goal. So reconnecting, every single time, and it doesn't have to be like a 20-minute conversation. It can just be 2 minutes connecting to their company vision, really helps keep people moving in that same direction.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example. And it's making me think actually something different than what I was thinking before. But I've been working in the healthcare space. And so there's been some really cool things coming from them because obviously they are dealing with a lot right now. And so their company culture and their leadership and every single person working in those buildings is doing so much. And I've heard different things. So like one of them is that there's a hospital system and they started this thing where at a certain point in the week, the teams would gather together and then they would just ask the question, what is most important to you right now? And that can be a good
question to ask.
Right. And it's personal, it's professional, and it allows people just to check in and really talk about where they're at. And I'll shoot one more too. So this is from a non-leader. She's a nurse anesthetist and a friend of mine. And she said, I was watching the leaders in my hospital wearing themselves out. They were working so hard. And she's like, it was very clear they did not have capacity to think beyond what they were doing for the patients. And she's like, because patient care is number one. So she said, I decided, you know what, I can see some holes right now. I'm moving to different floors I haven't worked on before. I'm seeing different struggles. So why don't I start something with my team? And so she started Wellness Wednesdays, which is just sending emails to her team that include a mantra for the week, a healthy recipe, journaling exercises. And it's one of those small things that then, because it started in her team, people heard about it and then it grew and it's going out to more people. And so I think that we're seeing people step into leadership in really cool ways right now too. And it's something that leaders can learn from as well, right? Because all the great ideas don't just come from them. They come from everyone else.
Hannah, I want to take back to something that you said earlier, talking about remote teams and building remote culture and how being remote, we don't have those touch points. We don't have the crossing each other, going to the coffee machine, or, hey, I'm going out to lunch, pass by, or I'm leaving early and want to stop by your desk. Those organic moments where you can build community and build culture are gone because literally now you have to pick up a phone and call someone, text, and the person can not be there. You don't share that physical space anymore. So you talked about how we need to create that opportunity. So if I'm a leader, I'm thinking, and this is literally where my brain went. I was like, okay, so do I need to set up like 5-10 minute Zoom calls with everyone to be like, hey, so how are you doing? Like, let's check in, or you want to get 5 minutes before the Zoom call. Probably going to be kind of awkward when it's like, you sit down with your parents and they're like, so tell us about your life. Like, how's your daily life? It's like, how's your bank account?
Right.
But it's like, as a leader, I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, okay, so I know we're remote. I know my people need this. How do I not turn into the awkward mom or dad here, like checking up on my kids kind of thing?
That's true.
Am I making sense? Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes sense. I feel like that's a little bit unavoidable. I think like some check-ins and some remote work settings, it's just going to feel like, a parent checking on the child. No, but I do think that like there's ways to create those organic moments, whether it's something like, if you regularly gather your team to do fun things, more organic moments will come out. Like if you do a happy hour every other week and that's the only thing you do for organic connection, it's probably going to be a little weird, because then it's kind of like, okay, do I need to like have a performative kind of affect when I'm on this happy hour? Like, yay, it's 4:30 and I have to feed my kids in half an hour. But I'm so glad to connect with you. Like it has to be consistent, I would say, like consistent, whether it's trivia exercises or like every single Monday we meet and talk about things, then every single Friday we meet and we talk about things. And Lisa was actually talking about this earlier, so I'll just start it. And then Lisa, if you want to finish this, because this was your idea thing that you told me about, which is like there's set hours that people are choosing to, so it's like you can connect with people during that time. So if you want to have like a random, oh my gosh, I just read this thing, Lisa, I really want to talk to you about this. Are you free? Cool. And then you can hop on and have that conversation.
That's cool.
But Lisa, continue that for me, because I feel like I'm missing.
Yeah. No, that was spot on. So basically, as organizations are moving towards the future and thinking about what are we doing? Are we going back to the office full time when we can? Are we going all virtual? Or are we doing a hybrid model? Many people are wanting to do that hybrid model. So in that hybrid model, some people are thinking about, do we have these hours where everyone overlaps? So like 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., everyone is expected to be on. And then around that, you have flexibility for when you are on or when you're not on, or when you're in the office or not in the office. So that creates, a window of time where people are able to connect and lean on each other and ask each other questions, which is a really interesting model. And everyone's going to be experimenting as we move forward. So I'm curious to see what that looks like. In terms of leaders creating the connection, I'm glad you said like set up 3 10-minute interviews, conversations, because they shouldn't be like an hour long.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people think they need to do their one-on-ones for like 60 minutes, and that gets really awkward really quick, let me tell you. But I think that tying maybe a purpose to the meeting is also helpful to have a purpose to say, let's check in, let's go over what you did this week, and then to just build in that connection point at the beginning. So a 15-minute conversation where the first 5 minutes, it's like, how are you doing? I think as a leader, to not have that mom and dad thing, to just share what you're struggling with, to say it's been kind of rough for me this week. My dog, ate mushrooms and was puking until 2 a.m. and like, whatever. By the way, this is a story pulled from Hannah's life. And yeah, this happened.
Oh, Hannah.
Yeah.
Artie.
Really loves mushrooms.
Artie. Another thing I was going to throw out there too is Hannah and I talk a lot about this idea of micro moves, which is these small little moments of being, relational with people that don't have to be giant gestures, but can be really important in terms of building connections with people. And I heard a great example of this from a employee who was just promoted to a new role, lots and lots of unknowns that she was navigating. And she was also thrown this huge project that she was leading. And the morning of the kickoff for that meeting, her manager sent her a muffin and some fresh OJ, sent it to her home with a note that said, very excited to have you on this project. Can't wait to talk to you in an hour. So there's appreciation right now goes so far. And whether that's a handwritten letter that you send to your employees, or sending them a little something, or just telling them that you appreciate them, I think that is huge too, in terms of building that supportive culture.
That's so good. It's interesting. I'm glad that you asked that question, Stephen, because I started remotely with Executive Speakers Bureau. So I work in Las Vegas. Everybody else is in Memphis. And
I wish we were all in Las Vegas, but that's another story.
I know.
Another conversation another time, whatever.
I know, right? We need to arrange that. the first month I was able to come into the office and be with everybody for a week. And I built those connections. I built those relationships because of what Stephen was talking about. Now I'm used to working remotely. I've always had a home office. I've always, most of my work and my clients are e-commerce. So I'm meeting them over the phone or over the computer. So it's not something that's always in person, but I'm building those relationships digitally. So that's something that I was comfortable with. But with my coworkers in this company, I missed that. I missed that so much, even though I didn't have, I had a little bit. And so I held on to that, when I had it. But now, like you said, we don't have those little opportunities to go in, and just have those interactions that you would, like going back to with your kids, you have those as you're driving to a function. You have that in the time in the car. So you don't have to, I'd go up and like check on my daughter, and I'd go up into her room and I'd sit on her bed and it's like, so how are you? And that's where the awkwardness came in, because it was kind of premeditated rather than an organic, something or other coming up, or as you're doing an activity, thus team building, or, things of that nature. Are you seeing successes with this right now? Are companies, I'm hearing that companies are doing it right. There are some that are, like sending that muffin and the orange juice. Are you seeing those successes to where people are going, we've got it right here?
Yeah, I think we're seeing both. I think that we're hearing more about the successes right now, because we're seeing, I think we'll hear more about the not so successes in the future. Like, one of the things that we're looking at is when people join an organization in the future, they're going to ask the question, so how did this company handle COVID-19? How did that go? How did you change your communication? How did you change your motivation strategies? This is going to be something that people keep looking at. And I think that the tactics that leaders are taking, like overall, it's truly just the leaders who are taking a people first approach and are putting their people first and are not expecting them to be productivity machines are the ones who are succeeding, who are like really, really expecting their people to be human. And even that, like you kind of talking about, having those check-ins with people, what's hard right now too is that when someone, so if we're all in an office for 8 hours during the day and I'm having an off day, I can guarantee that someone is like, oh my gosh, Hannah, let someone check on Hannah. Like,
right.
Right? Like those things happen because you can see the nonverbals, you can see so much of that. Right now, you can't see that. And that's why it's important for leaders to take those, like, you know what, I'm just gonna take 5 to 10 minutes and I'm going to check in with you, because if those moments aren't there, you're never going to know. And I think where we're seeing some leaders who are really missing the mark and people who are leaving those organizations is when leaders assume that everything's fine because they're not hearing anything. They're like, well, I would hear if people were unhappy. Someone would come talk to me. It's like, not usually, actually. That's not, if it happened that way, that'd be great. But it doesn't always. And so I think, where we're seeing leaders really, where we're seeing successes are when leaders are knowing that they don't know everything. And they're saying, you know what, I don't know, I need help. I'm asking people for help. And I truly think that is the mark of a really good leader right now, is a leader who's curious, who's asking for help, and who is going out of their way to spend more time doing that work than to think about how are we going to increase our numbers next year. That's just not working in the same way.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'll just say, I think there's a lot of experimentation happening right now because this is brand new. Nobody has, I say this all the time, nobody got like pandemic training, at least probably not most leaders of organizations in corporate America. So we're all just figuring it out together, and there's going to be some failures, and that's okay. I think actually that's one of the glorious things of this whole moment of time is that we're learning that failure can be a good thing. It leads you to these incredible innovations. And so people are doing things that are going very well. They're also doing things that are failing. And I think, one of the things that we've heard about is this idea of Zoom fatigue and how exhausted people are by having to be on camera all the time, all day long. And at first it started out with these great intentions of leaders being like, you know what, we're going to stay connected. We're going to see the whites of each other's eyes. We're going to do it. So we have a policy where everyone in every meeting needs to put their camera on, even if it's one-on-one. And people were like, oh my God, I just want to wear my pajamas one day and not do my hair. Like, I'm having a terrible day. My kids are throwing a tantrum right now. I just want to go outside for a walk, and you're making me sit down and be. And Zoom is so draining too, because, you know, we gesticulate a lot because we're speakers, and we do it when we're listening too. And y'all do as well, but not everyone does that. And so I've heard from leaders who are like, I'll ask a question and there'll be 15 people on the call. And it's just like, it's like their screens have frozen. Like, I'm just looking at like people staring at me and nothing is happening. And so it is exhausting. It's a different form of communication. It's not like being in person. So giving people the grace to choose, you know, maybe 30% of the time I'm not on video is actually better than enforcing video on all the time thing. So it's this trial and error that's happening, and we're slowly learning and curating what are the best ways, the best practices for us to move forward into this new world.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, ladies, we have run to the end of our time together.
Can I ask
Thank
one
you
last
so
question?
much.
Can I ask
for
one
being
last quick
on
question?
this. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I want to know, because I know that you guys have the answer to this question. I know you think about this.
I'm excited about this question.
I'm getting nervous. Can you tell? I'm shrugging. Do we know? Yes.
Yeah. Tell me one thing that you're excited about this time moving forward. What excites you about what's possible?
I'll go. I am very, Steven, why are you laughing? Why are
I'm
you
just laughing because you're like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it.
I'll do it. I know
I'll
you
go
deserve-
first. I'll go first. I'm scared, but I'll go first.
Well, this is a really subjective answer, or question. So I feel like there is no right answer, which
Really?
is great, which is why I'll go first.
Yep.
I'm glad you think that, Lisa.
It is.
And stay there. So for me, ever since I was a kid, actually, I had this mindset of like, work is not my identity. Work is not where I value myself necessarily. I've always had this healthy gap between who I am and what my work is. For the most part, there was a time where I got kind of wrapped in it, but for the most part, I've been able to keep that distance. And I think that just the way that the American workplace culture has been built and defined, people's identities are so embroiled in what they do. It is just like, my value, I show it by how hard I work and how much I produce and how much success I get. And I think for me, moving forward, I'm seeing people question that status quo of work is your identity, and how hard you work and how many hours you work means how good of a person you are. So for me, I'm really excited for people to embrace the work to live mantra versus live to work, which I think has been the norm for many, many years. I'm really excited for people to start asking questions, pushing back, and also for organizations to put as, you know, a focus, not just the bottom line, but people's quality of life. I think that's a really cool change that I'm hoping to see.
Hannah?
Good. That was so good.
Really good.
Yes, to all those things. And what I am most excited about is empathy has become such a real conversation. And for so long, I mean, the content that we've talked about, and when we talked about generational differences, and when we talk about what we talk about now, there's this idea so often of like, oh, that's so soft. This is just that soft stuff. It's soft science. And right now, empathy in being such a prioritized part of the conversation and how to live and lead and communicate, it's like, this is not soft. It is one of the most important things that you can do. It requires vulnerability and courage, which requires strength. Like, the idea that we can lead with compassion and grace and empathy, because, you know, I think about like my cats coming into this room, or my puppy who eats all the mushrooms coming into the room, and it's like, this is going to cause a ruckus. And instead of people thinking, oh my gosh, that's so unprofessional, usually people are like, I can hear my kids crying in the other room right now. Like, you're fine. The things that have happened to me, it's cool. And that is new. That is not how it was before. It was like, there are expectations of standards of professionalism, and if you don't meet them, you're unprofessional and you aren't successful. And now it's like, no, we're humans who live lives and have all these different things going on. And when someone doesn't show up on time, instead of getting really mad about them showing up on time, let's ask, is everything okay? Because maybe something happened. And I think that that switch from assuming and judgment, even sometimes, to one of curiosity and understanding is something I'm so excited about moving forward. Yeah.
That's a good word.
You two
Good
are amazing.
word. I know, aren't they?
Oh my gosh.
They're so great. You can just talk to them forever.
Oh, could. You guys are incredible. Both.
Ah,
Such beautiful answers. And
well, thank you. Thank you for asking such thoughtful questions. This was a really fun conversation.
Good.
Well, listen, so I will sign off as I always do. If you want more information on Hannah and Lisa, go to our website, www.executivespeakers.com. They can speak individually or as a team. And we didn't get into a lot today, but they do an amazing job of customization and personalized research for each client. And they take care of everyone, as noted by Hannah's recent 5-star testimonial that she got. So congratulations, Hannah. Jennifer, thank you so much for being on. It was amazing having you. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend in Vegas. So anyways, ladies, thank you so much. Y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.